All right, welcome to our video on clouds. This builds on our last video about the water cycle, as clouds are, of course, a direct result of certain steps in the water cycle. So let's go ahead and start with our objective for this video. I can illustrate the water cycle and describe the role of the sun and the energy change within each step. This may not seem like it applies directly to clouds, but it really is all about that role of the sun and the energy change that's going to be causing those clouds to form. So let's go ahead and move on. Well, we know that clouds form when the sun, which drives the water cycle, heats the water. That's where the energy change is coming in. We're adding that sun's heat energy to the water, which causes it to evaporate, so that warm air that's evaporated rises, and we know that as we get higher in elevation, the air cools. So warm, moist air rises from the surface, and then as it rises, it cools down. At a certain height, air cools to the dew point and condensation begins. The dew point is just that point where it gets cool enough that warm water vapor cools enough and becomes water droplets, and that's condensation. Then the water vapor condenses on tiny particles in the air, forming a cloud. We talked about this during the condensation step of the water cycle video. So that's the basic steps of cloud formation. You've got your evaporation, your rising, hitting the dew point, and then condensing into tiny droplets or particles that form the clouds. Here we've got a nice illustration. This would be great for your notebook. Lots of color, lots of details. We've got the water in this, this shows the water coming from the ground, but it could come from the ground or the ocean. We've got that warm air rises, and there's all that water vapor in the air. Even if it doesn't come directly from a water source, there's still water vapor in the air. So as the warm air rises, that coolness, the cooler temperatures up high cool down those water droplets enough to, that water vapor enough to form water droplets. Okay, so we're going to look at three types of clouds, three main types of clouds. You should be familiar with these from your weather unit in 5th grade. Cirrus, cumulus, and stratus. We're going to look at a general map here first, just kind of showing the differences between all of the different clouds. Of course, we have our stratus clouds here, our cumulus clouds here, and our cirrus clouds here. All the rest are just different formations of those three basic cloud types. We add in prefixes or suffixes depending on how high the clouds are or what formation they make. So a cirrocumulus would be a cirrus cloud, which indicates the height, the cumulus cloud, which kind of indicates the shape. So it's a combination of those two. Okay, cirrus clouds. Those are those whispery, fine, feathery clouds that are really, really high in the sky. They are made of ice crystals, and a lot of times you'll see them in blue sky, but they'll tell you that the storm is coming. So they're these high, wispy clouds that you know, because they're so high, they're made of more ice crystals than ice droplets. Here's an example. You can see how they kind of wisp and feather around, and they're very, very high up. Cumulus clouds. Those are those big, fluffy cotton clouds, the ones that we always say that they look like a shape. Their cumulus clouds themselves are not very tall, and they indicate fair, good, sunny weather. When they become those tall, big, dark cumulus clouds, then those become cumulonimbus, and those are the thunder clouds. Sometimes you might hear them called anvil clouds because they take the shape of an anvil. So here's an example of that kind of puffy cumulus cloud, and this is starting to build up into that cumulonimbus, big, tall thunderhead. Again, you can see how it's growing in height, tall, and this is kind of that anvil shape coming out. These big, tall cumulonimbus clouds. And the last main type is the stratus clouds. These are those flat, gray, you know, not very nice looking clouds. They cover almost all of the sky, and they're pretty much indicating that some sort of rain or snow is going to come. We usually see those when we have those dreary days. Here's an example of the low-lying stratus clouds are very low to the ground. And so they kind of form that thick wall or that thick ceiling. Nimbostratus, a little bit different still, gray, drizzly, big, just cover the sky in a big cloud blanket. So we talked about how we change the names of clouds based on where they're at, and we used the prefix alto to indicate mid-level clouds. Typically we see altocumulus and altostratus. They're higher than regular cumulus and stratus, but lower than cirrus. So that prefix alto means middle, kind of like when you're thinking about singers, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. Alto is kind of in the middle. Here's an example of altocumulus, higher than a regular cumulus, but still that cumulus shape. And then altostratus, still kind of got that, wall, that kind of layer of clouds, but it's up a little bit higher. Here again is another kind of map description showing the different types of clouds and where they're at. We can see here in the middle we have those alto clouds. Up high we have all of our cirrus type clouds, and low we have our stratus and cumulus clouds. And you can see the big cumulonimbus that indicates like the thunder and the storms coming. One special case of clouds is fog. Fog is just a cloud that happens near the ground. It forms when the ground cools at night after a warm, humid day. The ground cools the air just above the ground to the air's dew point, and then the heat of the sun, we usually say in the morning, it burns away the fog because the water droplets are evaporating. You'll see them near ponds and lakes. You might see it in marshy areas out in front of school as well. This is a very extreme example, of course, of fog out in San Francisco. Now we're going to do a little part where I'm going to give you about 5-10 seconds per slide, and you're going to see if you can jot down in your notebook what cloud you think this is, and then we'll talk about the answers in class. So here's the first one. All right, the next one. Hopefully you have a good idea of what that one is. Next, there's a few clues in here, a couple clues that might give this one away. And I think this is the last one. Think about how you might describe it to give clues to what type of cloud it is. Oh, one more. And end with a little humor. All right, be sure you review your notes, add lots of detail color, go back and rewatch if needed, and remember those cloud types.